Hey everybody, Dave Isaacs here, coming to you as always from the guitar studio here on Music Row in Nashville, Tennessee. And I want to talk to you today about rhythm and groove. This will be the first in a series of videos on specific rhythm patterns. So today I want to talk about the train beat. Now, there's a few basics to this that are really pretty simple. One thing that you do want to set up at the outset is that your right hand is going to establish your back and forth by going down and up. That's essential to almost any rhythm pattern. It almost doesn't matter what the rhythm is, because if you take a 4-beat measure, 1, 2, 3, 4, and just move the hand back and forth, then you have all the beats and all the subdivisions right there under your hand. It's just a matter of whether you hit the strings or not. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4. All those combinations are there. The motion never changes. It's still just back and forth. The train is a pretty constant beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Now we're imitating, of course, a drummer on a snare drum, and not being a drummer, I'm just going to fake this as best I can on a chair over here. Got my bundles here. So enough drumming, because really I want to talk about the guitar. But I always like to translate rhythm guitar by thinking about drumming, because the back and forth on the strings creates a similar effect to that stick hitting especially a snare drum. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. And so one of the things I'm doing is creating the two different sounds, the steady sound and the accent, by changing how much I swing the arm. Here's my regular back and forth. And you see how that automatically translates into a pair, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, or 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 1 E and a, 3 E and a. It almost doesn't matter how you count it. What's most important is that you feel steady, bop, 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 bop. You feel pairs, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And then you notice that there is this accent, as we pointed out before, and I'm getting the accent by just swinging my arm a little further. So here's no accent. And again, notice that the up and down, or I should say down and up, of the pick still gives us a natural accent on the down strum, down strum, down strum, down strum, down, up, because down has gravity behind it. The accent comes from swinging the arm a little further, and also putting a little bit of right hand bounce, a little bit of rotation in the forearm and the hand, so it's like that. Da da ba 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 ba. So here it is slowly. Notice that I'm focusing more on the bass strings when I'm not looking to accent. Where exactly you aim that is going to depend on what chord you're playing. But it really does help to sort of divide up your guitar, especially an acoustic guitar, into low end and high end, bass, treble, lower pitch, higher pitch. If you still find an acoustic guitar to be upside down, and you're thinking of this as top and this as bottom, remember that it's more helpful to think about sound, low sound, high sound. So if I say low end, what I mean is lower notes, and high end, higher notes. That's why bass and treble are probably more helpful terms. Bass, treble, bass, treble. So there's one aspect of the aim, this side, just back and forth on those bass strings, and then the accent is moving to the full range of the guitar, aiming for the treble strings. So on a regular E chord, which sounds real nice, that works just fine. It's a little open and ringing for a lot of songs that typically have a train beat, so what we generally might add to that is a right hand mute, and that's going to come from taking the palm of the hand, generally this area, and letting that sit on the saddle so that when I strike the string, I don't get a ringing note, I get a thumping note. And you have to find the sweet spot as far as where the hand sits on the saddle, because if I'm up too far, I don't get any note at all, and if I'm back too far, I don't get any mute. So one thing you want to practice is, I don't want to say pushing, just resting, really just letting it touch. We don't want to impair or impede the motion of the hand too much, but in order to get the mute, we do have to sit there a little bit. And depending on your hand and the type of guitar you're playing, the shape of the saddle, the bridge, and so forth, you may have to experiment with whether you're sitting more on this part of your palm or more on this part of your palm. I'm basically turned a little bit to the side, and so most of what's contacting the string is actually this edge of my right hand. And then as I change strings, notice I'm moving the right hand, but the part that's muting is traveling a little bit from here over towards the center of my palm. So it's somewhat fluid. You experiment with it and you see what feels good. Now, when I add this to a strum, what I'm going to do is thump the bass with the mute and then let the chord ring. And of course we want the back and forth, so what you may end up with is something like this. So you notice that I am playing down up just on the bass strings and then swing, now you'll find though that you don't always have to hit every single back and forth. Think about what's considered, say, a typical Johnny Cash style rhythm. And that breaks down to boom chugga boom chugga boom chugga boom chugga boom chugga boom chugga boom, with boom being the muted bass notes and chuck being the downstroke across the trebles, chugga including the upstroke. Boom chugga boom chugga boom chugga boom chugga. And then notice that I can also move my right hand over so I get some mute on the rest of the chord as well as the bass. It works fine if you don't mute, but for this particular style, that sort of choked muted sound is really the right thing. It's what most people are probably expecting to hear. So practicing that mute is really useful, and you can work with that by just doing something like this. Again, resting either the edge or the palm, depending on what feels natural to you, on the saddle, and then trying to go across string to string can maintain the mute as you go. And notice there's two things going on. One is just the very small motion of thumb dip when I pick. Obviously my wrist is moving, but I'm thinking thumb. But there's also just arm pushing through and maintaining the contact with the side of the hand. So everything's a little bit muted. And then I'm alternating the bass between, in the case of the E chord, string 6 and string 5. Holding the E chord gives me the notes that I need because I have the open E string, the root of the chord, and then my middle finger is here on the 2nd fret of the A string, giving me a note B, the 5th of the chord. And so our alternating bass does what a bass player would do, most likely, in this setting, which is root, 5th, 1, 5, 1, 5.